One of the things that's been fun about doing this kind of work is it's about judgments and decisions, and we make judgments and decisions in every part of our lives.
I think that's part of how we navigate it, right? With the humility that we don't know.
The future is always hard to predict. It's never been harder than right now.
How can we facilitate awe and using our experiences improve our well-being?
People get more enduring satisfaction out of a temporary thing, spending your money on experiences.
I'm Dr. Laura Sidari, board-certified psychiatrist.
And I'm Dr. Tony Sidari, board-certified rheumatologist.
And welcome to our podcast, No Cure for This, giving you what to say for medicine and life when you have something you can't fix. And all you can do is cope, adapt, laugh, and keep showing up. We're here for the stuff that isn't a guideline. We'll talk about burnout, stress, relationships, and everything in between.
Although our work as physicians informs these discussions, this podcast is not for treatment purposes, and any descriptions of patient situations have been modified to protect confidentiality. For any direct medical advice or treatment needs, we recommend you seek the care of your healthcare provider.
All right, so, today we're going to be talking about some concepts that relate to everyone, whether you're a healthcare professional or somebody navigating healthcare. I've got Dr. Tom Gilovich, who's here. He's a professor of psychology at Cornell University and world-renowned for his research in social psychology, investigating biases, investigating judgment, and what impacts our day-to-day choices, in particular, happiness and well-being. He's got so many different publications and research journals, and then also in mainstream media, and has a real way of connecting with students and connecting with community members. So I'm really excited for this conversation today with you, Tom. Welcome to No Cure for This.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here and eager to talk about wherever we go on this conversational path.
Those are the best types of conversations, aren't they?
Yes.
What got you into social psychology? What drew you to the field, and what sustained you all these years?
I've always been interested in kind of, I'll call them quirky things that people do. So when I was a kid, for example, I'm a big sports fan. You had some kind of sporting event or watching sports on TV, and you say something like, oh, this person hasn't missed a free throw, in like 4 or 5 games. And someone, a smart person, will say, oh, now you jinxed them. And if they miss, they act as if they're serious. Like somehow the comment I made here in my room, far away from the event, nonetheless influenced. How is that possible? And the fact that very educated, very smart people think that way, that just was intriguing. And so I've studied the ways in which we can be fooled by our everyday experience. That happens. People draw these, you call them superstitious conclusions. And what's that all about? Just seemed like an interesting topic. And lo and behold, you could make a career out of studying things like that. Who knew? But that's what I've done.
That's awesome. Yeah, I still feel like there has to be that mojo and that special sauce. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, so I'm still feeling and believing like it has something to do with the fans, even though I know rationally and from your research that is not so. How do you reconcile what you learn in your research and what you feel and experience in your day-to-day life?
Well, I'm glad you used the Buffalo Bill example because I know a number of people who have said, I just wasn't paying adequate attention. I forget which game it was with the missed field goal. And if I was only paying attention, he would have made it. Wait a minute. Maybe if he had paid more attention, but your paying attention is going to influence that. But fans often believe that. So in terms of what to do about this, what to do with it, I've explored where these beliefs come from and what are the psychological mechanics that give rise to it, and whether it's in the sporting event context, whether it's in a medical context. One of the things that's been fun about doing this kind of work is it's about judgments and decisions, and we make judgments and decisions in every part of our lives. So there's just been this nice variety of studying sports decisions, political decisions, economic decisions, etc.
Yeah, you get a little bit of variety for everything.
Yeah.
With sort of the discoveries that you've made over time, what's been most surprising to you? What are some discoveries that maybe you would have expected to go the other way?
The most surprising thing, and this is now controversial, staying in the realm of sports, one of my graduate school advisors, Amos Tversky, who's just a giant in the field, who was also a basketball fan, we did this research on streak shooting in the game of basketball, the idea that once you've made some number of shots, the game just seems easier. It feels like you've got the touch. You almost don't have to look at the basket, and it's going to go in. And based on some other research that shows that we're not that good at detecting what is random from what is ordered. And people at a gambling casino where the outcomes, by the nature of the randomizing devices, that it's random where it lands on, let's say, a roulette wheel. Nonetheless, people feel, just like they do in the basketball arena, that they're hot and they want to shove more money out there. And so we wondered, maybe we're exaggerating the streakiness of performance in sports as well. And so we did some studies showing that, look, after the fact, you can always say that someone was hot. If they hit 8 out of 10 shots, you call that hot, fine. And they probably did feel different when they were in that state. Being in the midst of making most of your shots, you feel different. But does that predict how you're going to do? That's the meat behind the idea of a hot hand. And what we found was, surprisingly, that's not the case. There was no evidence of streak shooting. There's some recent data suggesting that there's a little bit there, but we mostly exaggerate the extent to which a hot player is hot. And that was, playing basketball for many years myself, the feeling is so compelling that the evidence just was shocking. So that's the biggest empirical surprise of my career.
That's the important part about doing research. We test those hypotheses and we use that objective data to make decisions. But one of the really interesting things that I found from your research is how much that subjective part can play a role with our perspectives of what is real and what isn't.
Yeah. So people in the financial realm, for example, will feel they've made a series of successful investments and feel like they can do no wrong. So they make riskier bets than they would otherwise, often with problematic results. The whole history of the study of hubris and overconfidence. People succeed in one area and feel, again, like I can do no wrong. So yes, we've been successful militarily over here. Let's invade this country. And again, often with disastrous results. So a lot of the big events in our lives, in society, around the world, stem from very basic psychological processes.
How do we navigate that, knowing that biases are inherent? Each one of us, kind of living as social creatures, we're going to develop biases with the cultures, with our experiences. So how do we sort out what is real and what is perception?
Well, your listeners might take this with a grain of salt or think, oh, well, of course he's going to say that. He's an academic. But I do feel some version of knowledge will set you free is appropriate here. That's one of the reasons that we seek out education, to learn about these biases. And a lot of them were discovered over hundreds of years. The scientific method evolved. There's just some important insights in how you look at data, either formally as a scientist or in your everyday life, that can allow you to see the world more clearly. So the courses you take in your statistics class or your social psychology class teach you things that aren't hard to learn, but aren't intuitive. And so it's important to learn them. And again, your listeners might say, yeah, he's a professor. Of course he says that, but I firmly believe it.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of health and healthcare, being able to navigate information, what's important, what's not, and it's getting harder to be able to decipher that. People talk about, social media having difficulties identifying with the speed of which information is coming in, what's a reliable source versus not, and how do we take large amounts of information that we're consuming and sort through it. This is a different age than when
It
you
sure
started
is.
your career.
Yeah.
What guidance or thoughts do you have related to that?
Well, getting the story wrong, misunderstanding the world, there's sort of two main contributors. One is you're exposed to some information and you don't evaluate it appropriately. So in the medical context, it's the most natural thing in the world to think that something happens after this, therefore it's because of this. But what your question suggests is it's also a function of what is the data that's presented to you. And we live in a mediated age, and so we're not collecting the data. And it's often been filtered for us in biasing ways. And how do you adjust for that? That just makes the problem harder.
It's very challenging. As a professor working with students, as a researcher, how are you navigating that?
Well, that's one of the fun parts of the job, is to get students involved in doing research and raising a question about, all right, we think this is true. How do we study it? And then you anticipate, all right, we're going to do this study. These are the results that we're expecting. And then to proactively say, all right, suppose we found them. What is a critic going to say? It instills in the students a kind of habits of mind to be more thoughtful, think about the weaknesses of what you already believe, what you plan to do, to then plan other studies, to triangulate on a phenomenon, or realize, oops, that was really stupid. If we did that study, it would be a waste of time. And instilling that kind of habit rather than just running with it is it's a privilege to be able to teach that and to see it stick in the minds of the students.
Yeah, that critical thinking, that's so important as part of our conversations, how we navigate research, how we navigate also healthcare. We think about also with the way that we're interacting, it's not just the information being presented, but it's that social aspect of how we exchange that helps us to come up with what actually is accurate, looking at the data and then also looking at different perspectives.
Yep, and the job gets harder all the time. I saw some political message the other day that it just seems suspicious. I don't want to go into details, but there were these celebrities seemingly backing a certain political figure. And I thought, that doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like this celebrity would endorse this particular politician. So I ran it through ChatGPT, and it carefully said, we can never 100% say, but, and then a long list of reasons why it was fake. And it was really good. And so now things right in front of our eyes that look as real as they can be are fake. And so this job of figuring out what's real in the context of all that's before us is, in a lot of areas, more difficult than it's ever been.
That socialization, it's technology too. So you mentioned using ChatGPT, AI is coming in. It's almost like a social mediary. How do you see that fitting into, as we're reconciling what's real versus not, and our social structures and conversations as people?
The future is always hard to predict. It's never been harder than right now. Even the big question that everybody talks about, the AI boomers saying we're going to be richer and more productive than we've ever been, and new jobs will be created, so don't worry about it. And then other people saying, no, this is going to transform work on a scale that's never happened before, and you're going to have lots of unemployed people, and we live in a world where a lot of your identity is tied to your job. What effect is that going to have? How that's going to play out? Nobody knows.
I think that's part of how we navigate it, right? With the humility that we don't know.
Hopefully, yes. Humility's
Continuing to do it together.
Humility's always been a good psychological attribute, maybe no more so than our present uncertain times.
Yes.
But the job of a scientific psychologist is also sometimes to figure out why is what's out there out there. As one example, we did this research a number of years ago showing that people get more enduring satisfaction out of a temporary thing, spending your money on experiences, rather than a permanent thing, spending your money on material possessions that are there all the time. And I would venture to say that's not a wildly counterintuitive idea. If you tell people that, they go, yeah, that makes sense. But then the question is, why is that? Why would the experience last longer and give you more enduring satisfaction than the thing that's actually in front of you? And so tracking that down, understanding the why, is every bit as important as the what, because the why also influences the choices that you make. And what we found in doing that research is, yes, it is true, the vacation you take in the Galapagos Islands or going to South Africa and seeing the megafauna, whatever, although it comes and goes very quickly, you are changed as a result of that. You're a person who's done that. Your personal capital is increased, and that's with you forever. Your experiences also connect you to other people more. We identify with our material things. It's part of our identity, but not as much as the experiences we've had. So understanding the why is often as important, or sometimes more important, than understanding the what.
What have you learned about the why?
On the experience, well, that we get more enjoyment out of it for the two things I mentioned. That is, our experiences are more central to our identities than our material goods. We're a social species. I don't know any humans that could exist totally on their own. And so anything that contributes to social connection is rewarding. We have brains that evolve to find that social connection desirable. And so think of it this way. Imagine we have this table here in your studio. Suppose I came in and, oh my God, you have that table. I have that very same one. As a result of that, we'd feel a little closer. But imagine that table's not here, but before we start, what have you been doing lately? And you say, oh, I just got back from the Galapagos Islands. And you go, you're kidding. I just went there too. And we talk about that. That's going to connect us. Just think about that thought experiment. When are you going to feel more connected to someone? It's when you shared an experience. And that's in the one-on-one interactions, but it also is much broader than that. Once you've traveled somewhere and you're back home, it's over. The experience you paid for is done. But you read about something, a typhoon hits the Philippines and it was the place where you stayed. You just want to read about it more. You go to Australia and you want to read about, it was started as penal colonies. What was it like to be a prisoner sent on those ships there? And your mind is expanded in ways that some material things do, but in general, experiences seem to have an advantage in that. And then the third thing that we found that makes our experiences give us more enduring satisfaction is they are less, they're consumed more on their own terms, less in relative terms. Consider the following thought experiment. Imagine we found out we have kind of the same tables here, but yours looks better than mine. that's troubling. Or if we had two computers and I found out that you got yours more cheaply than I did, yours has a brighter screen, more memory, how much is that going to bother me? A lot.
Yeah.
Why do I have this terrible one when you've got this great one? The same thing can happen with an experience. We both saw a particular concert, but you were seated in a better place than I was, or we saw it on different days, and yours, for some reason, got all the attention in the press. Mine didn't. I wish I was at yours, but it's not going to bug me that much. I have my memories. If I took photos, I have my photos. I'm not exchanging them with yours. So your experiences are less undermined by other people's better experiences in this, in a way that's different than your experience of material goods being, mine's not as great as that. There was a pair of surveys that were done by some economists that I think illustrate this. They asked people, what world would you rather live in? One where you're making, forget the numbers, but it's the pattern that matters. You make $50,000 and other people make 25, or one where you make 100, but others make 200. And so the question is, do you want to be a big fish in a small pond, or not? And it was like half and half. It seemed like a hard question. People couldn't decide whether they wanted more money. Thank you very much. And if other people make more money than me, so what? Or would you rather be the big fish in the small pond? Then there was another version of this that took it out of the material realm, entirely experiential. What world would you rather live in? One where you have 2 weeks of vacation, everybody else has one, so you can lord it over them. Oh, enjoy your 1 week of vacation. Or one where you have 4 weeks and other people have 8. And there, the question suddenly is easy. Everybody said, I'll take the 4 weeks. Thank you very much. I don't care that other people have more than I do. I just want 4 weeks rather than 2. And that shows, I think, that experiential things, it doesn't matter as much. It does. Sometimes you're bothered if other people have a better experience than you, but not nearly to the same degree as is the case for material goods.
With experiences, is it important that you experience it in person or kind of the modality, or as we've got like technology, you're experiencing going to a different place and watching it on TV or secondhand?
There's a lot we can get out of secondhand. You watch the David Attenborough nature shows, and in some ways, it's better than being there live because you could just see more. But there's a lot of work, a lot of it done by my friend Dacher Keltner on the experience of awe, and some artificial, let's call it, experiences can produce that. But it's mostly found out in the three-dimensional world, and where you take in all the sights and sounds. That's where awe tends to happen the most. And Dacher and others have shown that it's just very beneficial, that it improves your own well-being, makes you a better person, more generous. People often say that you experience awe, that you feel kind of small. Arrogance disappears.
How do we facilitate that awe? Because I think sometimes we're observing people having so much information and they're feeling that comparison, whether it's material or experiential, that I'm so small and I'm not important or not capable. How can we facilitate awe and using our experiences improve our well-being?
Yeah, well, I think there's two answers to that. One is get out in nature. Nature's amazing, and you don't have to stand on the edge of the Grand Canyon, which pretty reliably inspires awe. That's great if you're there, but there's this phrase that everyone hears now: touch grass. Get out there in nature and touch grass, and there's a lot to that. The more complicated answer is, this goes back to what we were talking about. If a lot of research is devoted to understanding the what. What is awe and what effects does it have? Dacher Keltner and John Haidt, another very well-known social psychologist, their analysis of awe is that whenever we experience something vast, so vast that our minds can't quite accommodate it, and it's that, whoa, the mind is trying to figure this out. So it could be vast in terms of size, standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon or looking up at Half Dome or El Capitan. It could be vast in time. People are moved by going to the pyramids and saying, wait a minute, the time between me here right now and the most famous Egyptian, Cleopatra, that's small compared to the distance between Cleopatra and when those were built. Man, these things are old. You just can't quite get it. Or it could be complicated conceptually. Certain scientific mathematical advances that you could kind of understand, but not quite. That just stretches the mind that can produce this feeling of awe. So you can just go straight for the practical, get out in nature, or you could try to think, oh, what are the kinds of things that are vast? And let me try to grapple with those, and that will produce awe.
That perspective matters a lot, how you're perceiving that experience in addition to the experience itself.
You put your finger on, if there is one principle of my field of social psychology, that is it, that we don't respond to the stimuli that we encounter in the world. We respond to the meaning we assign to those stimuli, and how we think of it makes all the difference. Whether you feel crowded as opposed to how many people are in the house that you live in, that drives the effect of being in a crowded environment. And how do you feel about your income matters as much or more than what your absolute income is.
You know, as you're talking about the comparisons we're dealing with in society, a larger gap between the haves and the have-nots. And some individuals are struggling to get their day-to-day needs met. And then other people, they're, having so much affluence. How do we navigate like kind of possessions and sort of basic needs and also experiences in a society where we've got increased disparities and increased separation?
Well, I think it's a problem. There's a lot of research showing that when wealth inequality, income inequality really grows, we start to have some problems. I think if you told people 20 years ago, who are the happiest people on the planet, before these results were widely publicized, I don't think anybody would have said, oh, those Scandinavian people way up there where it's cold all the time and it gets dark at 3 o'clock in the afternoon during the winter. Those will be the happiest people. No one would predict that, but we now know from these surveys that are announced every year that year after year, those countries are at the very top. It was Denmark many years in a row. I think now Finland has won it the last 7 years in a row, something like that. And they're overrepresented in the top of the list. So there's that testifies to the fact that wide inequality can be a problem. A colleague here at Cornell, retired from the economics department, Bob Frank, did these great studies in the United States where they looked at counties, looked at all counties across the United States, looked at those that had experienced growth in income inequality over a certain period. I forget what the period was. And then they looked at what makes those counties different from the ones in which income inequality had not grown. And what you find is the divorce rate is higher when income inequality goes up. Bankruptcies are higher when income inequality grows up. And commute times are longer. And if you've dug into the happiness literature, you would be hard pressed to find a more toxic blend than those three things for happiness. So income inequality, both in terms of these cross-national surveys, testify to how important income inequality can be. And the same thing from these direct studies, where there's more income inequality, it creates a real challenge for psychological well-being.
Some of those things are outside of our control, with the culture we're living in or what sort of the hand that we've been dealt. What are the things within our control or that we can modify related to well-being and related to happiness?
Well, we're happily, we right now are living in a democracy. We can vote and vote in politicians who take seriously the idea that income inequality can be a problem. And again, there's no easy answer to it. Capitalism is great. It's an incredible engine for producing wealth. By itself, in terms of figuring out how to distribute it, maybe not so good. And so there's always this challenge of, yes, we want to be as productive as possible, but we don't want to completely ignore the distribution part. And there's maybe no topic that's more timely than that one, if in fact we do become vastly wealthier because of AI and robotics. Great. Yay, let's spike the football. But if we don't figure out what to do with all that extra wealth, and we haven't proven ourselves to always be that skilled at that, that's going to be a challenge.
And that's something that impacts everybody. So even if you're very wealthy, if you're seeing everyone around you really suffering, that's also going to impact your experience, let alone the person who's trying to make ends meet and suffering day to day.
It's a very good point. That income inequality obviously is hard on the people at the bottom, but it's not great for people on the top. And again, Bob Frank, who did those studies, has this nice example. He puts up on a presentation on this a picture of he's a car guy, I'm not, so I forget. I think it's a Lamborghini on a road with a whole bunch of potholes, and said, you can live in this world where it's easy for you to afford the Lamborghini, and because we don't have a tax structure that takes care of the roads, it makes it easy if you're at the top to afford this car. Would you rather live in that world? Or, next slide is Porsche, costs like 1/6 of the price of the other, on a really nice road. And which world would you rather live in? That's a no-brainer for anybody. You want a Porsche is good enough, and you need good roads to do that, and to drive it, to put it through its paces. What are you going to do with the Lamborghini on this pothole-filled road? And I think it's a compelling example, even for rich people. Yeah, it's great behind your gated community, but you got to get out in the world to experience awe and other kinds of things.
Thank you for watching and listening to part 1 of this episode with Dr. Tom Gilovich. Come back for part 2, where we'll dive into awe, gratitude, and the pursuit of happiness.
You're not really aware of your conscious thoughts.
I think that's part of what I see people really struggling with happiness.
I don't think any of us believe when it comes to deep happiness that you can fake it till you make it.
Is the goal to ultimately be happy?
If it's a goal, here are some ways to go about it.